diseases. They've caused terrible human suffering since ancient times. A curse of the past, many think. But today, infectious diseases cause almost half of the world's premature deaths. Those under age 45. Many disease victims are impoverished children in developing countries who aren't protected by vaccines. Life-giving drops that the affluent take for granted. It doesn't have to be that way. The International Vaccine Institute, or IVI, is a newly established medical research center based at Seoul National University in the Republic of Korea with a global mission to develop and accelerate the introduction of new generation vaccines to fight disease among the world's poorest people, especially children. Dr. John Clemens is IVI's first director.
Infectious diseases cause millions of deaths in developing countries yearly. The development of new vaccines offers the promise of alleviating this terrible burden of death and disability.
Vaccines are very powerful, and potentially we can still save millions of lives per year.
Sir Gustav Nossel is world-renowned for leadership in medical science and vaccine technology.
I call it a moral imperative. You could also call it a human right.
Vaccines are our cheapest, most effective weapon against infectious diseases. Vaccination or immunization is the delivery into the body of organisms or parts of organisms of a target disease that have been killed or greatly weakened. Vaccines cause a false disease that triggers the body's immune system to fight it. Dr. Barry Bloom, Dean of the Harvard School of Public Health, was IVI's founding board chairman.
The International Vaccine Institute was created in the early 1990s by the United Nations Development Program. It was a recognition that advances in science provide tremendous new opportunities for creating vaccines to prevent disease and death. Hence, a public sector institution devoted to research and training and testing of vaccines, primarily for saving the lives of children in the poorest countries, was created.
34 nations and the World Health Organization have become signatories to the convention creating the International Vaccine Institute. Professor Cho Won-kyu, former president of Seoul National University, led the effort to make Korea IVI's home.
President Vice Ken then emphasized that Korean people must repay the world for its support during and after the Korean War. We are repaying the world partly through support of IVI to help millions of children who suffer diseases.
The Korean government has contributed at least $140 million to IVI's establishment and also helps fund its operating costs. Another IVI supporter is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which works to increase global health equity by accelerating the development, use, and sustainability of tools and technologies that will save lives and dramatically reduce the disease burden in the developing world. Newsweek magazine described Bill Gates' goal: to bridge the most fundamental gap separating the poor countries of the world from the rich ones. The gap in human health.
Well, vaccines are really a miracle thing. They can prevent kids from ever getting a disease, and these are diseases that millions and millions of kids are dying from today. And so there's probably nothing more urgent, nothing more impactful then making sure that the research on new vaccinations in these vaccine delivery systems get the money they need.
With a grant from the Gates Foundation, IVI coordinates the DOMI, or Diseases of the Most Impoverished program.
Through DOMI, we're conducting research to measure both the burden of disease and the performance of vaccines against diseases. These data will speed the introduction of new vaccines against cholera, shigellosis, and typhoid fever. DOMI is being conducted in partnership with 7 countries: Bangladesh, China, India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Development of an inexpensive vaccine against cholera is a major objective of DOMI.
For centuries, even the word cholera has caused fear and panic because it can cause large and fast-moving epidemics, and severe cholera can kill an otherwise healthy person within a matter of hours. Safe and effective cholera and typhoid vaccines exist for wealthy travelers, but the poor, who need these vaccines the most, can't afford them.
Take Indonesia. Cholera thrives here in the slums of northern Jakarta, where hanging toilets contaminate the waterways, and access to clean drinking water is limited.
Cholera is still a deadly disease in Indonesia. A cholera outbreak is a constant threat. Immunization is the best tool to prevent or even to eradicate cholera. IVI's DOMI program is one of our most important strategies for cholera control. We have started pre-vaccination survey of cholera, typhoid, and shigellosis in North Jakarta.
Indonesia's Minister of Health is concerned with the measurement of the disease burden, or the real social and economic costs of a disease to a society.
Recently, the International Vaccine Institute, or IVI, has started to engage in supporting the activities of immunization program in Indonesia. The result of the study will contribute inputs to the Ministry of Health in developing policies in dealing with diseases of the most impoverished, or DOMI.
The fight against cholera takes us halfway around the world to Sweden. Here, medical researchers led by Dr. Jan Holmgren at Gothenburg University have developed an inexpensive oral cholera vaccine. DOMI is facilitating its manufacture by both international vaccine producers and local producers in developing countries.
An effective cholera vaccine was first developed and produced here in Sweden.
The cholera vaccine is being produced locally in Vietnam and will soon be produced in Bandung, in the highlands of Java. By Biopharma, a vaccine producer established in 1890 and sponsored by the Indonesian government.
Cholera causes terrible suffering across the tropics. We are about to produce a new, inexpensive cholera vaccine that was developed in Sweden. We will share it with the world.
20 years ago, bacterial meningitis caused by Haemophilus influenza type B, or HIV bacteria, was common among children in many industrialized countries. Fortunately, potent vaccines have almost eliminated HIV meningitis in the wealthy countries. But for developing countries, HIV vaccines are expensive. That's why it's important to determine if HIV meningitis is really a major problem before deploying those vaccines in impoverished regions like this rural village in Vietnam. Dr. Paul Kilgore is the lead IVI scientist for its HIV meningitis research program.
Unfortunately, doctors in Asia often really don't know if HIV meningitis is a serious problem among children they treat, because diagnosis is difficult without laboratory studies. Also, HIV meningitis is a cunning disease spread through coughing and sneezing from child to child. It may start simply with a high fever and not eating. Death may come within hours. Until recently, few large-scale population-based studies were undertaken to measure just how serious HIV meningitis really is in Asia. But now, IVI is studying 3 populations, each with about 100,000 children under 5 years old in Vietnam, China, and South Korea.
Dr. Dang Ducan coordinates research on HIV meningitis for the IVI research program in Hanoi.
Vietnam is still poor, with limited resources to fight disease. That's why vaccines are so important. If the IVI Vietnam survey shows that HIV meningitis is through a major cause of disability and death, among Vietnamese children will fight with a vaccination program.
Rotavirus diarrhea is another killer disease in children in developing countries. IVI's Dr. Zhu Ziyi talks about the best strategy for its control.
Vaccines are the only tool to control rotavirus diarrhea and are urgently needed. Several potential rotavirus vaccines are being developed and may be commercially available in a few years.
But Dr. Zhu is concerned because we lack the necessary knowledge about rotavirus to use these new vaccines effectively in developing countries. Here in China, Dr. Fang Xiaoyin of the Chinese Academy of Preventive Medicine works with IVI to gather data on just how widespread rotavirus is.
But to develop effective vaccines, we must first know how many genotypes of the disease exist and in what areas they prevail. We are gathering that data, and it will help us tailor vaccines to combat this children's disease.
IVI's new laboratory complex, generously donated by the government of Korea, will make innovative and desperately needed research possible.
With these modern labs, IVI can take advantage of the most sophisticated new weapon of the genomic era.
We are developing a new model of research at IVI, a fusion of cutting-edge technologies in the lab and hard work in the field.
Experimental vaccines intended for human evaluation must be produced carefully in small quantities. It's an expensive process and a bottleneck to the development of vaccines in 4 countries. The new laboratory complex includes a pilot plant for such manufacturing. IVI's Dr. Philip Nye explains its role.
Behind me here, IVI is building a state-of-the-art pilot plant to manufacture small lots of vaccines for testing. That will speed up the process of bringing vaccines to those who need them most. Another role of the pilot plant will be providing technical training in the most advanced technologies for staff of vaccine manufacturers in developing countries.
With the aid of molecular biology and immunology, we will fight infectious diseases that have plagued humanity since ancient times.
As we grow, we will continue to work in partnership with academia, public health ministries and agencies, and industry. Our current staff of 46 from 18 countries will grow to 200 staff at full occupancy of the building. And we'll extend our geographic focus, currently on Asia, to Africa and Latin America.
The International Vaccine Institute, its global partners, and its Korean hosts share a dream that research can and must lead to new vaccines that will control the infectious diseases that are a scourge of developing countries. The Korean government has given the world a wonderful gift by hosting an institute that will help transform the dream of a healthier life for the world's poorest children into reality.